Welcome back to the road to City Hall. With a little more than a week to go before the election, is Mike Bloomberg's lead actually growing? And what, if anything, can Bill Thompson do to stop a third Bloomberg term? Let's ask the four members of our Consultants Corner: Republicans Jonathan Greenspun and Jake Minges, and Democrats Evan Stavisky and Scott Levinson. Well, gentlemen, we'll get to your ad for the communications workers in just a second in the mayor's race. Evan, I'll start with you. New Quinnipiac poll shows Bloomberg now 18 points up. What's going on here?
Well, I think you got to start by applying the Chuck Schumer rule. In his book, Chuck Schumer says he starts every day in a campaign saying, would I rather be me or would I rather be the other guy? In this case, certainly you'd rather be Mike Bloomberg looking down on an 18-point lead than Bill Thompson looking up on one. But that being said, Mike Bloomberg is an 8-year incumbent. He's got 100% name recognition. The fact that he's at 53 is probably more instructive than the fact that Thompson's at 38. Some of those people certainly aren't going to vote amongst the undecided. Some of those people will go to Bloomberg, but as everyone here knows, the lion's share of undecideds will break against the well-known, well-established incumbent when they show up to vote on Election Day. So the race probably tightens in the end.
Well, Scott, go right ahead.
No, I think Evan's right. I also think that when you see big swings in numbers like that over a week, 2 weeks, the electorate's soft. So I think a lot of those voters who moved over the last 2 weeks can move back to Thompson.
Really?
Absolutely. It's a week left.
It's soft. That's an interesting spin. It seems like Bloomberg's lead is growing now. But the
question is, how locked in are those people? These aren't people who decided 2 months ago or 3 months ago they're so in love with the mayor that they're committed to voting for him. They're people who, after knowing him for 7 years, just came aboard the last week and a half.
Well, Jonathan used to work for the mayor. What do you make of the numbers?
Well, look, it clearly puts Bloomberg at an advantage. But again, I wouldn't say that the numbers are soft, but at the same time, I don't believe that the spread is as wide. I don't think the Bloomberg campaign believes that either. The fact of the matter is that no one is really moving either way. Bloomberg's not really moving. You said that Thompson's moving in this direction. He seems to be. But really, when you think about it, the Thompson vote is an anti-Bloomberg vote. And so the question is, how many more people can get angry in the next 8 or 9 days beyond what you have right now? Because I don't really, of course, there's probably some people who are voting for Thompson because they believe in what he stands for, but I think the majority of that, what I believe is 43%, is more of an anti-Bloomberg vote. That's where it's been for the last couple of months. That's where it is now.
Jake Minges.
People have been asleep on this race for a while, Dominic, and they're suddenly waking up and saying, wow, we got a race here. They're turning on their television, and we've been watching Bloomberg ads since June, but all of a sudden they're starting to see some Thompson ads. They're paying attention. But what you're seeing is a very stark contrast. The Bloomberg people are pounding away, way outbeating the Thompson numbers on television, with a contrast of he's going to raise your taxes and he was missing in action at the Board of Ed. That's having a profound effect on independents, and Republicans that were hanging out there, not going with Bloomberg, are starting to come home to roost.
Now, Democrats, are you worried that these numbers could actually hurt turnout and help Thompson?
Well, I think
hurt turnout and help Thompson.
Well, and help Thompson, I mean. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
So let me just address something Jake said, because I think he makes a really interesting point. There's a bunch of really smart people working for Mike Bloomberg on his re-election campaign right now. They have access to really in-depth research, polling, and targeting. And if you look at the nature of the TV commercials they're running, they're anti-Thompson commercials, which immediately says that the race is probably a lot closer than 18 points, as I think all of us here are saying. You measure a long-term incumbent against 50, not against his opponent. And quite frankly, the people throughout the city, throughout the region, are generally disaffected with politics in general because of the state of the economy. That means that the most motivated people are the folks who are going to come out and vote against the status quo. That definitely is a good thing for Bill.
It certainly means that if the margin isn't close, and that's what is illustrated by the Bloomberg folks going negative, it sends the message that the Bloomberg folks are willing to do whatever it takes to make their margin as great as it can. And that's at the peril of Billy Thompson.
Well, but with turnout being everything, we all agree, I think we're all sort of saying the same thing around the table, but with turnout being the key, I think you're going to have to look to the Bloomberg Get Out the Vote effort, which they've been working on since the summer. Knocked on well over 1 million doors. They've got the data in their systems about who are the ones and the twos. Those are the people who strongly support the mayor. And really, what you got to do is you got to make sure that every single 1 and 2, come, whatever the weather might be that day, you start pulling people out and make sure they get to the polls. Otherwise, the polls don't mean anything.
Okay, let's take a look, and we'll start with Jake to react to it. Let's take a look at Scott Levinson's ad for Local 1180.
The advanced groups.
The advanced groups ad.
The year is 2021. We are entering Michael Bloomberg's 6th term as mayor of New York City, a city that is now known as Bloomberg Town, a city far different than the one we know today. Manhattan is home to only the super rich. There are no public schools. Working families commute from outer regions to work minimum wage jobs. Yet once again, Michael Bloomberg has overruled the people's will in order to win another term. Tell Republican Michael Bloomberg, New York City is not for sale.
Jake Minges, funny.
It's fantastic. I think it's the best ad of the cycle. Very funny, and I'm speaking on behalf of Rudy. I'm glad you didn't put the Bloomberg name on Yankee Stadium. You left Yankee Stadium out of it.
You tried to call it saying.
You get to a point in all these campaigns where you're getting barraged every day with negative ads, and every once in a while it's nice to see a clever, amusing ad and take a step back from the regular day of business.
Well, I don't see Jonathan laughing, no.
No, I think, it's a good ad, and I think Scott does good work, but again, I think it's more of a parody, and sometimes humor does work in politics. It's more of a parody on, I think, what has long been the rap on Mike Bloomberg, and for those who don't like him, this is sort of the rallying cry, and Scott has been able in an ad to kind of encapsulate it all into a 30-second spot. Does it move voters? I really don't know. It goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. I think Bill Thompson has done a very, very good job of grabbing that 43% of anti-Bloomberg sentiment that exists in the city. The real question is, how does he beat him? And I don't think that ad or there's any issue out there that's really going to move the numbers between now and election
As
day.
much as I like the ad, I think that there is an issue that the Thompson campaign has been banging away on the fact that Mike Bloomberg has so much money and has been spending so much money. And I don't think that is going to move. I agree with Jonathan, it's not going to move numbers. And at the end of the day, the problem is that Bill Thompson has not given the people of New York a single reason to shift leaders right now. He's not offering anything new. He's not offering anything to motivate people to come over and vote for him.
Evan?
Look, I think if we all sit around and say wonderful things about the ad, Scott's going to blush, and none of us want to see that happen.
It's the first time I've heard him quiet.
Look, I think to pick up on something that Jake just said, as to whether you're going to be able to move real numbers with this. I think the question is, Mike Bloomberg spent $100 million, and any ad, no matter how clever, how smart, or how well it's done, the problem is he's spending $1 million a day. It's very hard to compete with, and whether that's an independent expenditure or whether that's Bill Thompson's campaign, it's the problem that everybody's facing.
Well, the real credit goes to Arthur Chiliotis of CWA Local 1180, who had the courage to stand up against someone who's worth $16 billion and speak his mind.
But the ad is it really fair to say that he's in his 6th term? I mean,
well, it's obviously
joking.
It's obviously a joke. It's something that takes place in the future. It is an attempt to raise the issue if Mike Bloomberg was able to extend this term. Is there a 4th term coming?
Okay, well, you guys are going to grade Attorney General Andrew Cuomo in just a second. But Jake, you work very closely with Rudy Giuliani. A report today by my colleague Fred Dicker in the Post says that if Andrew Cuomo runs and that he sent the message to Rudy Giuliani, that Giuliani is not going to run.
Well, I certainly haven't heard any message being sent whispered or by carrier pigeon, but the fact of the matter is if Rudy Giuliani decides to run or not run, it's not going to be based on whether Andrew Cuomo is the nominee or whether it's Governor Patterson. I think that Andrew Cuomo ought to spend more time worrying about how he's going to get David Patterson out of the race than who he's going to face on the Republican side.
Fair enough. Okay, guys.